Hello again, everyone. I'm Adam Kassab from GLOBIS. Welcome again to Inside Japan. This is number 17th interview in the series. And today, Geoff Botting is here from Canada. He's also a long-term resident of Japan, around 25 years, I think. And he's a freelance journalist and translator, almost all translating from Japanese into English. Geoff, thanks very much. Thanks for coming in.
Adam, it's great to be here.
Thank you. So Geoff, 25 years ago you came to Japan. What originally brought you to Japan?
Double-digit unemployment in my home country. Seriously, I graduated from university in Canada, in Western Canada, in 1986. And at the time where I lived, in British Columbia, it was, unemployment rate was around 12%. Well, that was the official unemployment rate. So, the long and short of it is most of my friends who I graduated with were like working as waiters in restaurants or clerks at convenience stores. It was a pretty grim situation. So there were, apparently, I had heard there were jobs teaching English in Japan, white collar work that paid decent salary, so I came. And I also wanted to study the Japanese language as well.
Language, right. So, I mean, I can imagine you coming for a few years, but you've ended up staying 25 years. So what kept you here?
Well, basically the opportunities, job opportunities. I enrolled in a Japanese language school while I was here, finished that, and then I wanted to work in media. I got a job at a newspaper as a part-time proofreader. And I built up more contacts, and they gave me more and more. I was doing lots of different kinds of jobs, I had more and more opportunities. And so the longer I was here and the more contacts I had, it made it harder and harder just to sort of suddenly go back home and give it all up. So I was sort of in cruise control for many years as well.
Freelance journalist and translator. What's a typical day or a typical week for you?
I don't have a typical day, as they say. It all depends on what work I'm. At any given time, I'll be working on maybe 2 or 3 or 4 different jobs. Writing articles, for example, or translating a financial report. I'll sort of juggle those in a day. Mostly, I work at home in front of my computer. I'll often interview people for these articles I write on the telephone. And if otherwise, I go out to their offices to interview them. Takes a couple hours, maybe 3 hours, and then I come back and I'll maybe resume doing a translation. So as you can see, I'm sort of juggling. Very
varied, kind of exciting work you're doing. Yeah.
Well, I don't know about exciting. Sitting in front of a computer for most of the day can only be so exciting, but.
If there's anyone watching around the world who's thinking, I'd love to go to Japan and become a freelance journalist and translate, is it actually easy to do starting from zero today?
Well, not to be a translator, because you need to know the language. And to know the language, you have to be here as a student or doing some other job like an English conversation school teacher, and then studying the language in your spare time, and eventually getting up to a level which is good enough to translate.
So it's a long-term sort of commitment.
I guess as far as being a translator is, as far as being a freelance journalist, no, that's not the case. But then again, you still need to have contacts, and they take a while to build up.
I know, Geoff, I sent you a kind of list of questions that I was going to ask, but this one's just popped into my head. What do you think makes a good journalist, or what's the kind of edge, maybe? What makes
a good journalist?
Yeah.
I guess curiosity.
Right.
I guess, probably. I think in this day and age, because of, journalism has changed a lot with the technology and the internet.
Right.
I think you have to be really versatile. It helps to be a multimedia journalist, someone who is comfortable both in print journalism as well as being video or audio. Print journalists are now doing podcasts, for example. So you have to do that. It helps to be savvy with HTML and internet technology, so you can actually post and edit your stories online. So you have to be versatile and very savvy with technology, I think.
And a lot of online sort of websites or like online newspapers, so to speak, they get people sending in free content.
Yes.
And I think just to get their name on the site is kind of the value of the journalist. So with all this free content around at the moment, is it difficult to actually make a living as a journalist?
Well, in a sense, yeah, it is, because the organizations don't pay the money that they used to, and they don't have that constant steady stream of work available. But on the other hand, there still is a huge demand for information. Probably the demand for information is probably greater than it ever was.
I see.
Because all of these people sitting at home on the internet or on the train with their smartphones,
right?
They're all looking for information. So there's a market for selling information. So you have to just produce more. As a journalist, you have to produce more and be efficient about it and be very resourceful. Just to take, if you research a story, figure out ways of recycling it for the different media. You do some research, and then you'll write a story for a website. You might also use some of it on your podcast, or you might sell it to a magazine in Britain, and you might then also sell some of it to the Japan Times. So the most successful freelance journalists are very good at doing that.
Fantastic, thank you. So there's hope.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I don't know whether it was about 8 years ago, people were predicting the death of journalism, right? Because of the advent of the internet. Right. But that hasn't happened. Okay. It's changed.
That's good to hear. Can you tell us, since you've been in Japan or when you first came, anything that really surprised you about just life here, everyday life here?
There's a whole bunch of things. Well, I'm not surprised anymore, because I just take it for granted. But I guess when I first came, thinking back, renting my first apartment, this was in Osaka in 1986.
Right. And
Osaka is famous for having steep key money. And
key money is what you have to pay before you actually get the keys.
Yeah, it's just a fee that you pay just for the privilege of being able to have a roof over your head.
And how many months rent was that?
I think the standard at the time was 10 months. This is Osaka too. It was worse than
10 months rent in advance just to get the key.
Yeah, in principle, but they would often knock it down to 8 months as if they were doing you some great favor. So I think we got a 2 LDK. This other guy, we said, let's be roommates. So we had to fire up, several thousands of dollars each. It's ridiculous when you think about it. And it wasn't such a great apartment. There's no central heating, or there's no double glazing or anything like that. And you sort of wonder, well, what's all this fuss about?
I remember when I got my first apartment, I had the hand code to put your ink thing. They actually made me use my fingerprints
is that right?
all over the contract just to be sure.
Oh, I think, yeah. I might have done the same. It sort of rings a bell.
Okay, great. Something you love and something maybe you're not so fond of about Japan.
Okay, well, let's see. I guess the fact I never really get bored here in Tokyo, because I guess the metropolitan region here in Kanto and Tokyo, there's a population that's equivalent to the entire population of my country, Canada, which is a huge country and everything's spread out. Right. So there's so much that's just densely packed into this small amount of space. I always find things to do. I was actually a bachelor for a very long time. I only got married 6 years ago. And I think largely that was because I was never bored or all that lonely. There was always things to do. I had a great social life. I still do have a great social life. So, that's what I really like about Tokyo. And when I go back to Canada, even after, say, 4 or 5 days, I start to feel like I'm not being stimulated enough. Like the streets seem really empty and dead. Yeah. And I feel, oh God, how could I have lived with so little stimulation?
Yeah, it's like, where is everybody?
Yeah, where did everybody go? Where are they hiding? Is there a neutron bomb that went off or something?
So something you're maybe not so fond of about living here?
For the last few years, it's been the national holiday system here, which I don't know whether your viewers are all that familiar, but in Japan you have these sort of designated periods designated by the state, which basically they say, you have, I don't know, about a week or more than that at New Year's, called Shogatsu. Then you have Golden Week. It's also about a week or more, depending on how the calendar falls. And then there's Obon, which is sort of in the middle of August. So the result is that the entire nation takes their holidays all at the same time. And in a country like Japan, which is quite a small island country that was densely packed with people, you get horrendous congestion. You've seen on the news where the travelers come back from Golden Week or something, and the TV news people will say very nonchalantly, 50-kilometer traffic jam on the Tomei Expressway, and 70 kilometers out in, to me, just especially for a country that where convenience and getting around quickly is paramount. It seems really strange to me, and it affects me personally because my clients also are not very active. Even though I'm freelance, but my clients are not very active during those vacation periods, which means there's not much work for me to do. So the only thing I can do is take a holiday, but because of the demand, there's surging demand for tickets, say airplane tickets. Airfares are 3 times or 4 times higher than they should be if you're lucky to be able to get a seat in the first place. So that's really that has had a direct effect both on me financially, because I can't work during those periods, and I can't go anywhere. But also affects me, I guess in terms of my quality of life is also, compromised because for the reasons I just said.
Just for some of our viewers may not know, but Golden Week and Obon, could you just quickly explain what?
Golden Week is the spring holiday, right? And I guess is there about 4 designated days, but they all come around roughly a 1-week period or 1.5-week period. And of course, if there's like a Wednesday or a Thursday in between, they become holidays as well. And so it creates a sort of a period of about a week or so and then, as I said, it seems like the vast majority of everyone in the entire country is on vacation during this small window.
And Obon is a holiday for?
Obon is less. It's not really as specific. It's generally that the period that's in the middle of August, maybe a 2-week period in the middle.
What's it for? What type?
It was a tradition. It's based on tradition. When the Japanese people would go back to their hometowns and pay their respects to the dead, their deceased ancestors.
Okay. Thank you. Challenges of doing business here for you?
Well, for me, I'm freelance, as you said at the top of this piece, and that means that I work for a number of different clients in translation as well as in journalism as well. But I'll just talk about translation here. For me, the translation industry here in Japan is dominated by people who are not native speakers of English. And some of them people, believe it or not, can't even speak English or understand it, yet they're working in the translation field, which is kind of strange. So the people that I work for, in many cases, they don't have a very good appreciation for the quality of work. I can do something, I can do some value added to something, and in many times it's just not appreciated. It's not recognized or anything. So that can be frustrating, as well as the fact that I work for a wide range of different clients, and it's unclear what their expectations are, because then they have to report back to the client, and I never get to meet the client. I don't know what the client's expectations are. I might find out secondhand. Some clients want a translation to be 100% accurate, precise exactly to what the Japanese says. Others sort of will enlist a foreign translator or a native English speaker because they want some really good quality copy or prose.
So rather than a literal translation, they want more sort of idioms. And they want the thing to
they want it to read smoothly and nicely. There's not enough clients like that. And there are some clients, apparently, there are some clients who want the English to look like the Japanese. I've been told this by the manager of a translation agency here in Tokyo. He says, some of our clients, they want Japanese-style English, believe it or not. So the actual grammar, the construction of the sentences sort of matches up with the Japanese. And of course, it's if you're reading such sentences in English, they can be really tedious because they're really long and complex sentences.
Here at GLOBIS, we focus a lot on kokorozashi for our students' development, and we actually left it as the Japanese word. But I think in English it may be something like personal mission.
Okay.
Are there any kind of... It is actually quite difficult translating from Japanese into English. And I think you mentioned earlier on yoroshiku onegaishimasu, which is a very sort of basic Japanese, sort of beginner's Japanese term or expression. Yoroshiku onegaishimasu. How would you translate that into English?
It depends on the situation, I guess.
Right.
I mean, in some situations I might say, you know, I look forward to working together with you. In other terms, like say president's messages in financial reports, it's more just thank you very much.
I see.
And it's something that you know you really have to think about in sometimes.
What does it actually mean literally?
Well, it just means please be nice to me, I guess. please be good to me. In English we have that expression. You know, we're talking about a third person. You say hi to Fred for me. It's a little bit like that, I think.
Interesting.
It's similar, yeah.
Okay, so anyone who's studying Japanese now, it'll be quite interesting for them to hear that. So thanks, Geoff.
Well, I hope.
Just moving on now to sort of, you know, Japanese historical figures or political figures, authors, anybody like that you sort of admire.
Yeah, the baseball player. Well, you're British, so.
Yeah.
But his name is Hideo Nomo.
Right.
And in the mid-90s, he decided to go and play in the major leagues in the U.S., and he also was very resourceful about his contract that had him bound in Japan, and he managed to use a loophole to get out of it. And but he was a pioneer. He led the way for all the other Japanese players who then went to the major leagues. At the time when it happened in the mid-90s, it was a huge.
Yeah, he was the first to actually make it to the major league.
In modern times. I think back in the 1960s there was a few others, but he was the one that really started it. But it was really because, why I admire him about it is because, you know, I like to watch sports to a certain degree, like the Olympics. But I like to watch it because I like to see the best compete against each other. Say for the Olympics, and I don't really get too carried away about the nationalism. And sports, especially recently, and certainly the media coverage in Japan, there's very heavy nationalistic overtones to sports, including individual sports, which I don't really understand. If you talk about a ski jumper, for example, he's not jumping for his country. He's jumping because he's a really good athlete, and he's trying to challenge himself.
Right.
But the media and I guess the authorities always try to sort of impose this sort of nationalism on the activity, which I don't really like. And Hideo Nomo I really respected him because it wasn't really about. He didn't sort of say, I'm Japanese and so I do this and I can't do that. It was just like, I want to play with the best in the world. And the major league he saw as the best collection of athletes in the world. And he wanted to take on that challenge. And it was sort of, it had nothing to do with nationalism or culture or anything. It was just purely the sport. And it was all about the sport.
Fantastic. And he had a very distinctive throw, didn't he?
Talk about individualism, yeah. The tornado, right? The wind-up. Yeah.
His wind-up.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thanks. Two more questions. And so if you could take the strengths from Canada and the real strengths from Japan and combine them to some kind of a super culture, what would you pick and choose?
Well, I guess Canada is... I like Canada because of the work-lifestyle balance there. Often there's a real, including private sector employers have a lot of, it seems, respect for people's private lives and whether they have families and whether the employees is spending enough time at home and that kind of thing. So that's sort of the way Canada has managed to strike this very good balance between lifestyle and work. And I guess on the Japan side, it would be just sort of the precision in which things are done. And I don't know where the word fidelity might be applicable. Basically means if someone, if you write an email to someone, someone in a colleague, they will respond in like 3 minutes or something. Say, excuse me, blah, 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 blah. And often, if you write it to someone who's not Japanese, if your email goes to a colleague who's not Japanese, it might take a day and a half for that email response. In the meantime, you have to wait for this response. So yeah, so that sort of, I guess that's the very speedy responses sometimes, and very sort of also very accurate and on target responses to things. So you don't find yourself having to wait for all that long for things to happen. Things just happen really quickly, and happen often in a way that they're supposed to happen.
Right. Thank you. Very last question.
Oh, no.
Final message for our viewers.
Company! No, I don't know. What am I supposed to say? A final message for the viewers.
There could be people sitting around the world. There could be people sitting here in Japan, but anything.
A message about Japan? Living in Japan?
Yeah, about Japan, living in Japan. Yeah, 25 years.
Yeah.
Experience Japan in a nutshell.
Japan in a nutshell. Well, I don't know. If you think Japan is a pretty cool place, then the only thing to do is come and visit and take a look around. It doesn't work for some people, but it also can work brilliantly for others. And why is a complete mystery to me. I've seen foreigners come here and they last for about 3 weeks. I've seen foreigners like me who come here and they stay for 50 years, and they might be the very looking at them, very similar personality types.
Yeah.
Why some of them like it and why some of them can't stand it, as I said, it's a complete mystery.
And on that mystery, we can end there. Thanks very much, Geoff.
Thank you, Adam.
Great talking to you.
Yeah, it was great talking to you.
Thank you so much. And there we go. Been very interesting talking to Geoff, and you can see he's still fired up even after 25 years of living here. So I'm going to end today without saying catch you later. I'm going to say yoroshiku onegai shimasu. You've been watching Inside Japan. Thank you.